Wow. Well guys, thanks to you, all of you, I was invited on Alien Day to the UK offices of 20th Century Fox. I cannot say how incredibly humbled I am. It's not me that caused this to happen, it's each and every one of your responses to my videos. So I just want to thank you all so much. I got to watch Prometheus on the big screen, along with the prologue of David and Shaw, and also exclusive Alien Covenant footage. Primarily the Neomorphs, and then the incredible Alien Director's Cut, all on the big screen. It was a superb night, and I just wanted to say thank you all before I get into my breakdown of the prologue. We were informed by Fox that this prologue is supposed to bridge the gap and explain a lot about what happens between Prometheus and Covenant. We open with an explanation as to Prometheus. In 2093, the Prometheus expedition went looking for humanity's creators. The mission ended in disaster after the discovery of a deadly alien pathogen. It's interesting here they are now calling it a pathogen. We have always been referring to this as the accelerant, the black goo, or mutagen. Perhaps a retcon in process here? The survivors continue their search. This either implies we did not meet our creators, or we are just continuing our search to meet them in their entirety and gain answers. Either way, it's a great atmospheric opening and the music is so fitting. We open to what looks like the Juggernaut floating through space. Doesn't appear to have propulsion up and running and is eerily silent. An overlay of David explaining after they made contact with the engineers and the Prometheus was destroyed. Then our first shot of Shaw, writing it appears. We see some incredible Geiger-esque statues in the background. Not overly sure what these are, but it looks like an engineer helmet on some form of a stand. We can also see her dog tags hanging down, so it's a nice little nod to what we will see in the film and why they were potentially there in the first place. As we go on to see what looks like Shaw plotting out a star map of some type. It's really interesting to see the star maps seemingly being plotted or used. The engineers had a very advanced navigation system, holographic, etc. So it does make me question why the need for the map. That paired with the ship appearing to be floating, is it damaged in some way? David continues to explain all hands were lost. He and Shaw escaped aboard the engineer ships. He was badly injured on their mission, referencing the fact he had his head torn off by the last engineer, of course. As this commentary continues, we get some incredible shots of the internals of the ship. Some alcove with a light, the hallways. It's just nice to see the depth of the sets they built. Again, it just amps me up for the movie, knowing they have clearly spent a lot of time and effort here. We get confirmation of what I had theorized a fair while ago. Shaw repaired David. We even see him instructing her. Really glad to see this is the route that they went and not something outlandish like an engineer facilitated his repair or anything along those lines. The interesting thing we learn through this repair sequence is that David states he has never experienced such compassion, certainly not from Mr. Wayland. His own creator had, in his eyes, not shown him the depth of compassion that Elizabeth had. Which goes hand in hand with the almost contempt he displayed for Wayland, stating he would be free if he was dead and that all people wished their parents were dead. So we go on to a really great shot of somewhere on the ship, Shaw attempting to piece David's body back together under his instruction. Green to green, red to red. I can't help but think during this shot that David isn't fully there. We had learned in interviews and the set reports that David has had 10 years without maintenance and he is a bit glitchy. I'd imagine the glitches started with his head being torn off and he may have descended from there further into his more unpleasant character traits. We get an exchange. Dr. Shaw's voice for the first time. David explains it's meant to be simple. Shaw says she is doing her best before David looks at her and says, "You're very kind at heart, you know." Even in Prometheus, we could see David appeared to have an affection toward her, whether curiosity or admiration for her and her faith, but it seems to be continuing here, amplified by their solitude. He goes on to explain how they were able to activate the engineer ship and set course to their homeworld. We see Shaw in the engineer chair, which likely becomes what the crew of the Covenant see during the hologram in Take Me Home TV spot. In this shot, we can see the navigation system working, so I again question why the need for the hand-sketched maps. Either Shaw didn't trust David and was keeping track of where they were going, or maybe that scene is sometime after this one, the navigation system damaged in some way. Although he goes on to say we were finally going to meet our creators, I would still question the validity of it being the engineer homeworld, but I am now more certain it is rather than a misdirect. It's a great shot of the beautiful pilot's room. The navigation system blew me away in Prometheus, and again here, the visual effects are simply stunning. It's nice to see it return. Shaw questions, what if they are no better than us? As a shot of David handing her a sketch plays. We then see the exchange play out in time. Shaw is being put into cryosleep as David reassures her so long as the engineers are no worse. He closes the pod whilst wishing her, "Sleep tight, I will wake you when we arrive." The affections still present, it seems. The brown cloak is reminiscent of the hooded character we had initially seen in the first trailer. However, this is clearly too large for her. I believe David likely uses this exact cloak later in the film. Alone, David apparently learned of their ways and awaited. Which could mean several things. I'm sure the Juggernaut likely had some form of information system aboard, and I would imagine in the time David was alone, he likely accessed it. Learning and thinking, alone with his thoughts, he potentially learnt too much of their plans, their histories. An incredible shot of the Juggernaut coming into the planet out of a form of high-speed flight. We see it coming through the mountains, next onto the engineer city. An interesting thing to note is the Mother Juggernaut is already looming overhead, which makes me wonder, is this something that is always present? It is above the courtyard area. These engineer-like humanoids potentially building their only city around it due to some religious beliefs. We see the ground opening up below in the courtyard, much like the stations do in Prometheus, so again, very clearly engineer tech on this planet. We see the Mother Juggernaut in action. It definitely seems to be a docking platform of some sort. The Juggernaut David and Shaw are on is flying into position and fitting into place like a jigsaw puzzle. I believe the Mother Juggernaut is like a war station. We can see the openings to this structure, and later we see David looming overhead, ready to drop his payload onto the lifeforms below. I think this structure is a weapon, potentially a reason as to why the canisters react the way they do, because they are programmed in some way from this station. As David walks around the opening and the canisters of Black Death loom, ready to drop, we hear him say, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." An incredible and spine-tingling quote which used with this character adds even more depth and mystery. What did David learn of the engineers? He doesn't appear happy in this scene, almost a steadfast resolve across his face, as if this is something he simply has to do. So we can safely assume that Shaw is likely away in cryosleep still during this time. We know the Juggernaut crashes. I would think that Shaw came round or was woken sometime after this genocide event and was understandably unnerved by David's actions, considering Prometheus. It may be that this is what caused the ship to crash, her interaction with David in those moments, or potentially something happens with the docking platform and that causes the Juggernaut to go off course, crashing in the forest. We then close. It was an incredible scene. I'm really happy that they showed this, as they have been teasing this for some time, and that paired with what Fox said about it merely bridging the gap, I do not believe they are showing too much at all. I really do believe they are just setting the scenes with this prologue, and boy, did they set the scene. So guys, I really want to hear what you thought of this. I still haven't fully had the time to process my thoughts on everything, what with the live stream I did last night and then the short sleep I've just had. So I may have missed some bits and pieces, but it was an absolutely superb trailer. It has me even more amped for this movie than before, and without going into too much detail on the neomorph footage, suffice to say my confidence in this film is sky high. What I saw of those neomorphs made me uncomfortable, which is a great sign in an alien movie. If you did enjoy this video, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel for more in the future. If you think this video is worth it and you want to support the channel, then please head on over to my Patreon page. The link is in the description box. I've been Mr. H, and until next time, I will catch you in the comments section.